Hello, Facebook Live. This is Mike George coming at you live once again from Natchez, Mississippi. And my goodness, what a perfect little time we've got here with this. Well, maybe slightly later than perfect, but will show you here a view of the sunset. I've gotten spoiled by these sunsets lately, but as you can see, we've kind of just missed it. But you know, we've seen these before. I think I've done a broadcast or two in the past with some gorgeous, splendid views of the sunset over the Vidalia Natchez Bridge. So right now we're kind of at that twilight hour of the evening on Sunday, the 19th of February, 2023. And it's just another wonderful day here in Natchez. The temperature is about, right? I think it's sitting right at 20 degrees. Perfect temperature, 68 Fahrenheit, we'll call it. Maybe 65 Fahrenheit. It's a little chilly, and I think as the sun goes down, we're gonna be, we've been having some cold evenings here. Which considering it's the month of February, I can't complain too hard. I'm not in Ohio, so there's that. So, it's been a wonderful weekend. I mean, I could be cliche and talk about Mardi Gras and how much of a shit show that was, but, there's Facebook pictures for that. So instead, I'm going to talk to you about something radically different, that I kind of got a couple really awesome things that I got to sort of, be a part of over the weekends. The first, here's we'll just start off right off the bat with one that I think a lot of you guys wouldn't expect. I went to church today, and I have to say, it's been a couple years since I've been in the South now, and I haven't, this is the first time I took the opportunity to go to church. And I know sometimes I mock church and, and sort of the religious, sort of the institutionalism and the dogma of most organized religion. But, to be fair, I grew up in a Catholic town, Steubenville, Ohio. And I have to say, to be fair to the church and, and the role that church has played in my life, I've never had a terrible experience in a church before. I consider myself blessed, and one thing that one of my best friends, Allie Petchel, she's Catholic herself, and I remember, and I hope I'm not misinterpreting this, but I remember one time during a really intense time in my life, over a decade ago, when I was visiting her, and she said something, and if Allie hears this, and if I'm completely full of shit, please feel free to correct me, and I'll be glad to correct the record. I don't want to take this out of context, but she said something that really stuck with me, and it's something that I think about a lot because, man, sorry, it's been an emotional, it's weird. Going to church today was a really emotional experience for me. And, I'm probably being a little bit, I hate to sound I'm going to sound narcissistic, which kind of goes against the whole idea of humility and religion and finding God and everything. But she said something, or whatever, maybe she didn't say it, but it came across to me as such, that she said something to the effect of that I was one of the people in her life that was the closest to God among the people that she had in her life. And I may be just making that up. This is decades ago. And I don't go to church normally. I don't buy into the whole, into the institutionalism I think that most church represents. But, one thing that, and the reason I went to church today was because I was seeking community. And that's something that church, I think, and I think really we don't really admit it to ourselves. I mean, I think most people that go to church kind of, they tell themselves that they go to church to find God. But I think, I mean, I hope I don't sound whatever. I'm just gonna say it. Like, I think I've found God, and I think I found God a long time ago. Maybe it was through the help of drugs. Maybe it was, I don't know. I'm not gonna try to justify it, but I feel like I found God over a decade ago. Hell, I mean, I definitely think back to 2016, and this is gonna sound absurd. But I found God during March 2016, when I went through what was then my first major mental health episode, which was when I spent the whole week of my birthday, my 30th birthday, just madly smoking weed, and doing so in a state of like just complete mental duress. And it was during that week, and it was during like sort of the, let's just be honest, it was during that mental health, whatever you want to call it, during my manic state, or during my sort of psychosis, I guess if you want to say it, that I saw God. And and man, not only that, but I saw my dad through God. And it was one of the most beautiful moments in my life, in terms of like, in terms of like just a spiritual moment. And man, I'm so thankful that I got to have that moment. And I'm sure, I don't know if that really happened. I mean, I tell myself that my dad's up there just laughing his ass off at the absurdity of the world below or above. No, I would say below. But that was the first time I think I ever had a spiritual moment, a real spiritual moment. And like I said, maybe it was the drugs, maybe it was, who the fuck knows? I mean, from my experience, the Lord works in pretty mischievous and mysterious ways. I love my Lord, our Lord, because he's a funny, I keep saying he, I don't think Lord is a he. I think that's a really reductionist way to view the Lord. I think the Lord is so much greater than a he. God damn it, the Lord is not a man. That's the stupidest thing that we've ever come up with. And of course, leave it to a male-dominated society to ascribe God as a man. No. Men suck. I fucking hate men. I mean, I'm a man, obviously, but, that's why I can say that with some level of credibility. But, anyways, back to the Lord, not to make it about me here. But, that spiritual moment was one of a very few that I got to have in my life. And I'm thankful, because it was during that moment that I got to see my dad. And damn it, I don't care. I'm sure, who the fuck knows happened to my dad in reality. I don't know. I mean, if he is in heaven, I'm sure he has much bigger things to concern himself with than just what musings are on my mind down here on planet Earth in 2023. But nonetheless, like, I'm thankful for that. And I would say, like, there's that, and then there was today. And, like, I've gone to church and stuff, and I've gone through the motions of singing the songs and, reading the scripture and just kind of falling asleep to it all. But, for whatever reason today, and maybe it's a testament to the pastor that we had, or whatever. These Southern folks are awfully compelling. They tell quite compelling tales, and they're quite charming. So I mean, if anybody's going to bring the Lord to life, it would be a Southern pastor, I think. But whatever the case was, I felt God today, and I feel God a lot. Like I've been blessed, because I think it's really when we strip down our material possessions and strip down all the fucking bullshit in our lives that we allow ourselves to take God in.
And again, God is not a man. He's not a he. I fall into the habit just as much as anybody else does, I'm sure, just because we know nothing better. But when we refer to God as a he, it really we miss out on the larger picture of what the Lord really is, and kind of this aspect. You know, in my spiritual beliefs, I believe that God is all around us, like physically in a way. Metaphysically, we'll say. And anyways, I feel blessed because I took the time to go out to this church. We'll do a quick shout out to the church I went to, which was oh shit, if I can remember the name of it. It was First Assembly of God. That's what it was. And it's kind of weird because, like, I don't know. I got the impression that it was sort of an evangelical kind of establishment, which I normally despise evangelism, because I think there's a certain sort of, I think the notion of trying to, I don't know. I just find the notion of trying to show Jesus to people to be quite, to be quite presumptuous, I guess. And I have to admit, like, I don't define myself as a Christian, because I don't really believe in the Jesus stuff. I believe more so in the Lord. Jesus, I think, was a scapegoat. Jesus was a straw man. And I think a lot of the teachings that we hear about concerning Jesus, maybe some of them are true, but I mean, at the end of the day, the Bible is a man-made book, all right? The Bible is no better than Harry Potter as far as, like, factual validity and whatever. You know, most people read the Bible. They're reading the King James version of the Bible, which is, written by King James, I assume, or some of his minions. And, and obviously there's there's more than one way to access that information. There is the King James Bible, there's the Quran, there's the Torah, there's there's a lot of different, there's a lot of other books out there dealing with the teachings of God and the sort of the underpinnings of morality and humility that I think religion ought to teach, and I think strives to teach. But I just had a spiritual moment today, and first of all, the church itself, the First Assembly of God church that I attended, was just, I was just a random guy off the street who walked in, and nonetheless, like, the pastor was there right at the door, like, greeting me. And even if you take out all the religion, even if you just sort of strip away the fact that it's a church and everything, and just kind of regard it as a sort of general organization of people, they were extremely welcoming, and it inspires me, just as the executive director of a nonprofit, and as somebody who's done event planning and who's done organizational work. I mean, he had to have been one of the most welcoming people I've ever met in my life, as far as just, like, meeting somebody off the street and instantly making me feel welcome. And when I used to do event planning, like when I used to, when I was in UAB at Wright State, and when I was doing Queer McGill events, that was something I always tried to do at any function that I was in charge of. Even just parties that I would host, private parties that I would get shit-faced at. I always felt that my number one responsibility as a host of an event is to make every person in that room feel like they were welcome. And it was always a habit of mine to try to find, like, the random guy in the back of the room that was just kind of twiddling his thumbs and smoking a cigarette, and didn't talk to them. And I mean, hell, I do that at the bar anyways, just because I'm kind of attracted to lone wolves anyways. But, like, anyways, like, I really admired, first of all, the pastor for that, for just looking at me and treating me as, like, a welcome member of the church instantly. And then, like, and of course, and then a bunch of the other church elders and such, they came up to me and introduced themselves. And man, it's been a long time since I've been to a place that really made me feel that welcome. And, I didn't really, whether or not their motivations are because they wanted me, and it wasn't like they were trying to make me welcome because they were asking me for money or whatever, like, I think the most like the most selfish motivation I can think of is just that they wanted another member of church. You know, just like anybody would, any organization with somebody who walks into an event would naturally want that person to stay and come to next week's service. So I mean, I really just admired the you know, sort of the vibe in that church. But more, and then let's just get to the actual teachings and everything, because I took notes and everything. Like I was kind of a big nerd. You know, I normally don't get that into the sermons and stuff to where I'm like actually taking notes and like reading the scripture and really trying to interpret it and everything. But one thing that really struck me, I mean, a couple things that struck me was, and I'm trying to think of the Bible verse. See, I'm never going to be one of these people who's good at Bible verses, but let me see if I can recall it. I think it was Acts chapter 2 or something like that. And there's a part in it where like Peter, and I don't know anything about the Bible. Like, so Peter, I think, was the king or something, or maybe I think actually Peter was the religious leader of the community of maybe in Jerusalem or whatever. But it was a section where Peter walks through the sort of the street of Jerusalem, I guess, and the way they said it was kind of interesting. You know, Peter didn't try to heal the sick or anything, but how they put it in the verse and what the pastor really emphasized was that the shadow of Peter had served. Basically, Peter was acting as a vessel to God. It wasn't that Peter himself was healing these people, but Peter was simply an accomplice, a vessel through which God's power was descending upon the earth and healing all these people. And the thing that struck with me was that Peter had no idea. Like this was a phenomenon that was going on unbeknownst to Peter himself when he was walking through the street, and when people were, when the townsfolks were putting, you know, were leaving out their sick and their sick and suffering like relatives and stuff, trying to get healed by Peter. And what struck me about this passage and what struck me about this whole thing was that the power of God was acting through Peter without Peter even knowing. And most importantly, without Peter even getting the acknowledgement that it was happening. And so, like, I think so often we, you know, especially with social media and everything, we live in this sort of world where when we do when somebody does something good, they want some sort of reward. And even the concept of karma sort of implies that for every good thing that I do, I'm entitled to some good thing back. And I mean, whether or not, I mean, and that is a valid thing. I mean, I think it's valid to want to be rewarded for doing good work. Okay. That's not something that should be, that should be sort of, you know, discouraged or anything, but the idea of doing good for goodness sake, I guess, is what kind of struck to me. And the idea that sort of, that we shouldn't help other people for the reward of it, that we should help other people for just the sake of it, for its own sake. That's what stuck out to me. And you know, and so often we live in this world where everything is so transactional, and like we expect that, like, oh well, we help we give $1 to a homeless person, so maybe therefore the universe owes us $1 back in some immediate to medium term future. And that, I mean, that's not really, I don't want to say it's a selfish thing, but it's something that I think is a little bit reductionist. And it kind of just, yeah, it reduces kind of the goodness of helping each other out, the magic. It takes away the magic from helping others, and it takes away, and it really, honestly, when I think about it, it sort of discredits the Lord, because we're making it about us and not about the power of the Lord, and about sort of the joy, just the innate joy of helping somebody else and seeing somebody else around us prosper, even if it doesn't immediately affect us, even if their prosperity doesn't immediately bring us prosperity. But you know what though, like even though that's maybe, even though that might disappoint some people to kind of know that you're not going to get that immediate reward, I think the bigger thing that I really loved about that notion was that along with that notion goes the fact that there are impacts and secondary impacts and tertiary impacts of those good deeds that we don't even know about. And so thinking about, I've shit, man, like I've been at times in my life when I've lost hope in everything. And like sometimes it feels like that even now, when the world just feels so goddamn overwhelmingly just corrupt. And I kind of have this joke that that Lord has a lot of patience, because in the year 2023, we have managed to take this beautiful planet that the Lord has given us and desecrate it and just destroy it and just basically just extract it for material purposes. And like we live in a world where there are still people who claim to be men of God who don't even acknowledge global warming, for fuck's sake. And just the level of ignorance that it takes to turn on the news and to see these storms hitting California, the wildfires hitting Portland, to see the fucking ravage that Mother Nature has taken on us. How can you be so fucking ignorant? And it takes a special type of just burying your head in the sand to see people, hell, even just the man-made ills, even to see even when I fucking turn on the news and see another black person getting shot by the police, and to then turn around and say nothing's wrong. That takes a certain level of just hubris. That takes a certain level of not even just ignorance. That takes a willful fucking disregard for your neighbor. And, I've gotten so tired of seeing people clutching their Bibles and yet doing nothing to acknowledge anything of what the world is going on around them. They just clutch onto their Bibles and all they do is basically just judge, and they basically just use the Bible to basically check off a box on their resume. And I'm tired of that shit. I'm tired of these fucking self-righteous Christians that clutch their Bibles and try to tell me what to do when they do nothing to try to improve their neighbor's life, when they try to do nothing. They just continue to drive around their cars to Walmart and just consume everything and give nothing back to the world. I'm tired of that shit. And I can't believe that we have allowed it in our society for so fucking long. I can't believe the Lord has allowed it for so fucking long. I don't think really they have. I don't think the Lord is, because the Lord's a funny Lord, and we've seen a lot of shit hitting the fan with some of these fucking people, and it makes me so happy to see some of the destruction that ravages these. I have to kind of give into some of my sinful pleasures of seeing things get destroyed. There is a little bit of the devil that exists in me after all. But man, anyways, let me digress from that for a moment, just to kind of go back to my original point that our good deeds are doing so much more for the world than we even realize. And for every dollar that you give to perhaps a person struggling, there's all these knock-on effects. Maybe that person is spending that dollar at a restaurant, and that restaurant's benefiting from that dollar, and maybe the server's getting a nicer tip, and maybe that server then goes out. God damn it! All the sort of ripple effects of a random good deed is just wonderful, because it's just, ever since 2020, ever since those fucking wildfires, man, I lost so much hope in this world. And it just felt at times when, God damn it, like it just felt like we were losing, and we were losing big. And, you know, and when I think about Ohio, and when I think about like all these fucking Trump people that are bringing their guns to a fucking children's event because there's a drag queen in there, you know, telling a story, like, what the fuck? And yet these people will somehow have the gall to call themselves men of God. Are you fucking kidding me? No, bullshit. And so anyways, it just gives me hope to know that even me, like even with the little bit of nothing that I have in my bank account, that there's still something I can do, and that there's still some way that I can. It doesn't take money to help people. It takes a little bit of love, and it takes a little bit of empathy, and it takes a little bit of trying to listen and to understand what the fuck is going on in the world around you. You know, what the fuck is going on, not in your Facebook feed. You know, and so that gives me hope, and I think that was my big takeaway from the service today. And it's just nice. God is good. And one of the things that I gosh, I mean, when I was in Alexandria, I was in front of the Joann Fabrics of all places. And there was just like this wonderful little moment when, like, you know, there was a woman I think it was a Sunday at Joann Fabrics. And like this cute, you know, like this cute white woman, and was talking to these two black women, and you know, they were all dressed up for church and everything, so I could tell they just left service and everything. And the white woman was talking about how she had witnessed somebody, you know, had witnessed this, you know, I guess I don't know if it was a person who had, I don't want to say converted to Christianity or accepted Jesus or whatever. But the way she described it, and the thing that she said was, yeah, here it is. It's let go, let God. Let go, let God. Because goddamn it, I'm a control freak. I'm an OCD little bitch, and I've noticed in the last like 5 years or so, well, hell, even longer than that, I think. You know, I'm a perfectionist, and I think in a way, I'm realizing that perfectionism. There's a selfishness to perfectionism that I think kind of colors it as a sin in a way. Not a sin, but it's sort of I don't know, the perfection that we often, as you know, thinking that we're responsible, trying to take credit for, and trying to basically impose our own version of good, our own version of perfect. There's a selfishness to that. And it's taken a long time for me to really realize that for myself. I'm a selfish cunt. And I have a problem letting go. Like any sort of creative endeavor that anybody's ever worked with me on that knows that. And I'm allowing myself, and through lessons like this, I'm realizing, and I'm allowing myself to let go a little bit, and to let God, and not just let God, but let others. You know, let others be part of the vision that I'm trying to create. And, you know, I'm at this point now with Crimson Rouge where it just, you know, with Crimson Rouge, it just feels so lonely. Like it's for the last year, maybe even longer, it's felt like I was the only person really doing anything with this thing. And I'm realizing, you know, like, is it because, what's the problem here? And I think a lot of it has to do with me and the fact, well, not just me, but I'm one key element of it. And the fact that I've tried to make this my project and not our project. And it's taken me a long time to learn how to share the creative joy of any sort of new endeavor. Because so often I have this very specific way I want things to look and feel and smell and taste, that I'm completely unwilling to allow other opinions to sort of taint the vision that I'm trying to do. And, you know, along with the whole notion of letting go and letting God, comes one of my a quote from one of my mentors, Miss Lisa Barton. She was a vice president of AEP. She was like my supreme boss back when I worked at AEP. Now she's moved. I think she just got a think she just left AEP actually for a job out in Wisconsin. But anyways, she had an expression that she said that stuck out to me to this day, that she said in 2016, I think. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think this kind of goes along the notion of letting go and letting God. Allowing yourself to cede control of what you're trying to do, and allowing somebody else's ideas to kind of color the vision a little bit. Not just making it about you and what you want, but allowing somebody else the permission to make it theirs too, to make it ours. And I love that. And not to mention, it takes a lot of stress off of me, you know, to kind of share the burden a little bit of a particular project or vision. I mean, and I think, you know, and I'm realizing that this whole notion of letting go and letting God, it's a wonderful way to reduce my stress. Because then the effect is that it's not just me. It's not, I'm not the only person responsible. I don't have to. It's I'm not the one who's making it or breaking it. It takes a lot of the pressure off, and so it's a wonderful notion that I'm really trying really hard in my next job and my next sort of creative endeavors, and even with Crimson Rouge, to embrace. And it's a beautiful thing, because it was never supposed to be about me. It was always supposed to be about the mission. And that mission has to be a shared mission. And it has to be a shared vision, not just mine. And so, anyways, I guess that's my sermon for tonight. But yeah, and I don't know, like, it feels a little bit selfish and it feels a little bit presumptuous to say this, but like, I feel very much like maybe what Jesus felt when he was sacrificing himself for the sin of others. Because, and I only say that because the sacrifice, I guess, well, no, maybe I'm using this bad. I mean, I'm probably using the wrong analogy, but like sacrificing yourself, sacrificing the credit that you get to take. I guess that's not really sacrifice at all, really, if I think about it. But I mean, letting go and kind of letting, taking yourself out of the equation and making it about the mission and making it about God, if you will, and about the work. It's a refreshing thing. It takes a lot of, yes, it requires ceding control and kind of not being a selfish little prick, but more so, it just takes so much burden off my shoulders, and it just allows me to breathe a little bit better and a little bit less, honestly, it's such a weight lifted off my shoulders in return for the slight variation to what I wanted to do, the slightness off track that maybe things got from the specific way that I wanted something to be done. But it's worth it, man. It's worth it. And I think it's something that I've had to think a lot about. I'm an only child, so I'm not used to sharing my toys. I'm not used to sharing my dreams. I'm not used to sharing my endeavors. So it's something that I've really had to work hard at, even in my 30s, which is kind of sad to say it's taken this long. But, whatever. Better late than never, right? Anyways, on that note, I'm going to go get something to eat, get a little drunk. Maybe if I'm lucky, smoke some weed, some good weed. And, I hope y'all have had a good day. Y'all have been quiet here, so I'm assuming that can only mean because everything that I have said is absolutely correct. And there's been nothing to dispute whatsoever yet. But, no, I hope you guys maybe learn, I don't know. Maybe not learn something, but I kind of wonder if you guys have had similar experiences, if you've had to let go and let God. And, it's easier said than done, of course. But I think with that also, the reward is much bigger than what's on paper. So let go, let God, and take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Toodaloo, Facebook lands. Have a happy Sunday. And, let's get through next week. And for some of you guys down south in Louisiana and in Mississippi and in the Mardi Gras impact zone, be safe and be merry, and joyeux, bon fête de Mardi Gras, and again, take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Bye.